Hey everybody, it's Kenya, and this is the Thank You for Saying No podcast, where we find meaning in life's unexpected turns. Stef and John and Jason Weiss, welcome to the Thank You for Saying No podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, and thank you for having Jason.
Thank you.
I'm so excited that you guys are here. Hey guys, real quick before we get started, we are recording this at Podcast Junkies, and it's a really fun studio in Boca. So if you're ever in Boca, Florida, this is a place you want to come. They can put your logo on the TV. There's actually 4 chairs here, but we're only using 3. And it's a fun setup. They have microphones, they have head muffins, they have everything you could eat. They have water. So check it out if you're in Boca. So to the listeners, this is a really special episode because we have 2 guests. So this is our first time having 2 guests actually on the show. So why don't we all say our voices so the listeners can understand who's who. So I'm Kenya.
I'm Stefan.
I'm Jason.
Okay, amazing. And so let's start with some introductions. I'm going to start with Stef. So Stef is one of my really good friends from law school. And as I was outlining today's episode, I was remembering how you've actually witnessed some of my no moments happen in real time. The no moments that led to this podcast starting, which, as the listeners know, was when I was in law school and I was applying for jobs and I really wanted to work in DC, but I was getting no offers. And so I just kept telling myself, after every rejection, one day I'm going to be glad this isn't working out. And I got all the rejections basically in the same apartment complex as Stef lives in because we were neighbors. And that was a very crazy time. I was thinking too how all my stuff was in your closet. I just left it there and then I went to California for an undisclosed amount of time. I didn't even know.
Yeah, some stuff was still there.
It was in my pillows. But yeah, so that was crazy. And I do remember at that time because you are a year ahead of me that you shared a lot of really good wisdom that I still actually kind of abide by to this day. And so I'm just thankful that you're here to kind of share it back with the listeners now on the podcast.
Awesome. Yeah, looking forward to it.
And now Jason. So I got connected to Jason through Stef, and they actually work together. So yes, Jason is an attorney, and Stef is also an attorney, if I didn't already say that. And Jason recently came out with a book called Shit They Never Taught You in Law School. And this is it right here for people watching. And I really admire in the book how you highlighted the importance of learning from the mistakes and focusing on the lessons learned. And that is something we love to talk about on Thank You for Saying No. So I'm just really glad that you're here to share more about your journey and some of those lessons that you've learned. Okay, so you guys, today we are going to talk about some of your no moments, some of the emotions that came from your no moments, and what they taught you about yourself and what they led you to. Okay, so let's start with Jason. Tell us about a time you had a pivotal no that you're thankful for. And so just so you know, no moments is what we call them on the podcast. So it's a time either you were told no, you said no, or just a situation didn't work out in a life-changing way, but how you're thankful for that because of what it taught you or what it led you to.
So I think I was practicing law maybe 8-9 years. And there was a law firm that was knocking it out of the park, was all over the press, all over the news. The managing partner of the firm was driving fancy cars and all this, and everybody wanted to be there. Mm-hmm. And I went in for a job interview, and I remember sitting in his lobby for an hour plus. And he walked past me easily a dozen times. Mm-hmm. And he didn't even introduce himself, nothing. After an hour and a half of sitting, I told the young lady sitting at the reception desk to tell so-and-so that I'm out of here, I'm not waiting any longer. And I walked out. And I got a phone call that night from the attorney. I'm so sorry, all of this. Come in one more time. And whatever you want, a blank check. That's what I'm going to pay you as your base salary, within reason, of course. And I remember speaking to my wife and speaking to one of my friends and telling them about this. And both of them are like, something doesn't smell right. Like, okay, well, he was eventually convicted of one of the largest Ponzi schemes in South Florida.
Oh my God.
And because I listened to my wife and one of my best friends, and the money would have been great and everything would have been phenomenal and it would have been an up and coming and all of this, I probably avoided needing to meet with the FBI, meeting to all of these things. So that no was a blessing.
Yeah.
110%.
Yeah. Did you feel like something was off too?
You know, I regretted saying no at the moment. I was like, you know what? No. And I remember the next day, like speaking to both my wife and my friend and saying, you know, I should have taken it. It would have been life-changing money, life-changing this, life-changing that, a different progressive law firm. And I went to a more traditional firm instead. I wound up leaving that firm and eventually starting my own, but I would have been under the scrutiny of a microscope. And now looking back, oh my God, like I'm so excited that I didn't do it. But
Right.
in the moment, I kind of wish I did.
Mm-hmm.
But looking back again, I'm
Heck yes.
so glad I did not.
Yeah, that actually reminds me of this job that I interviewed for. It was in Florida right after I interviewed when I was in law school, and the firm was an environmental firm, which is what I wanted to practice. And I don't know if you remember when you were looking for jobs like right out of law school, but you're coming from a place of having done a lot of free work because you don't have any experience. No one really wants to pay you. And so I honestly can't believe I said this. I don't know what came over me, but this is what I said. So the part of the interview process was doing like a research assignment. I think Steph knows this story.
I remember.
It was doing a research assignment, which is like, okay, sure. You want to know how I write. You want to know how I analyze. I get it. But then I submitted my research answer the day after I finished the bar too. Wow. So I was not in a good mood. And the attorney came back and was like, find this, like do some more research and find this. And I said, I have no more free work left in me. This is what I can produce. Either you want me or you don't. And then his like assistant was like, sorry, you didn't get the job. I'm like, okay. I didn't think I would. But I just think that's an example of how you would be valued there, how your work is. Because at my firm now in California, whenever they have people they're interviewing hire on, they pay them by the hour to do the research assignment, even if they're like a newer attorney. And I think, and my firm, I just think it shows how you're going to be valued at the place. And so I'm glad that I responded the way I did now, even though in the moment I was like, oh my God, what did I just say?
Well, I had an interview with an energy beverage company where the guy brought in a complaint and said, this was served on us. What would you do? I'll be back in a half hour. And I'm like, what do you want? So I went through it. I'm like, yeah, I would do this. I would do this. I would do this. And he's like, great. Sounds good. And he was looking for free advice.
Right?
That's all it was.
Yeah. Like, it's not my fault if you don't have a research assistant, but it's not going to be me.
Or at least not without pay.
Exactly. Not without pay. So that's interesting. Okay. What about you, Steph? Tell us about a pivotal no moment that you're really thankful for now.
Pivotal no moment. It would have to be. It was actually a double back-to-back no
Hey.
that I'm thankful for. The first no would have been right after. Well, I was just maybe a semester, 2 semesters short of graduating college, undergrad, and I applied for an internship at IMG Academy, South Florida, Bradenton, Florida, and it would have been the spring internship at that point. I applied, could have been through Teamwork Online, got an initial interview, phone interview, and I mean at that point everyone wanted to work at IMG. Well, first off, everyone wanted to go to IMG, and if you didn't go to IMG, the next best thing is to work at IMG. So I applied, got the phone interview, and maybe about 2-3 weeks after the phone interview, I sent a follow-up email to find out, hey, is there anything else you need? Let me know. I'm very interested. And I was told no. No, we filled it with someone else, but here's a contact in Tampa that you could reach out to for a similar job with a similar internship. This was with USL, United Soccer League. Reached out to them. I think up to this day, I still haven't heard back from them. But so that's besides the point. So fast forward now to summer. I reapplied for the same internship because at that point IMG would do seasonal internships, right? Spring, fall, summer, whatever. So I reapplied for the summer internship, interviewed, same hiring manager from the first interview, and I got it.
Wow.
Right? And so it was probably about, this was in the summer, so I was now leading up to graduation. And I get an email about maybe about a week, 2 weeks before graduation. This is probably a month before I was supposed to move down to Florida. That said, sorry, but we have to rescind the offer. All internships across IMG had been sort of tossed out the window at that point.
Wow.
Right. So I was there. There I was stuck about a month before I was supposed to move to Florida from Rochester with two back-to-back no's for the same internship. And I mean, what did I do? I had to chin up, continue my move to Florida. Ended up finding another internship with Ironman. And sure enough, once my internship with Ironman ended, we were now into the fall of the past spring, summer, fall now. And luckily, IMG at this point had now opened up that position.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, it was a full-time position, right?
Excellent.
So they opened up a full-time position for what would have been the internship that I did apply for and that was rescinded. Company policy, they rescinded it. And I applied for that position, full-time position, and luckily it was the same hiring manager from the first two times.
Oh my God.
Right, Matt Bear. So I applied, and I mean at that point, if you guys didn't want to give it to me, just tell me as soon as you get the application, right? But no, I mean it worked out. I flew. Well, no, I was in Tampa actually, so I drove up, had an interview, and it was probably the best decision I made. One, taking the job, and two, keeping in contact and still following up with Matt, even though I had been two times sort of. No, I had two no moments right within two seasons, spring and summer. So yeah, I think that would be my pivotal no moment in that I didn't burn that bridge. I didn't close that door. I kept the lines of communication open with Matt, and I still kept expressing my interest in working at IMG. And I mean, it eventually worked out. Thankfully, they turned that internship into a full-time job, and I applied. I got it, and it's really led me to where I am today. Both professionally, and just personally.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that is a really good example of not burning bridges, because twice over you could have easily been like, okay, I'm just not going to stay in contact with them. I'm just going to give them a piece of my mind.
Yeah.
And they rescinded the job too. But that is a really good example of not burning bridges and we're going to get to this later a bit in the show today, but not taking those personal, because they can lead to opportunities down the road.
Yeah, 100%.
Well, maybe we should just talk about that now, actually, because we're here. So on the topic of not taking those personal, and like you talk about in the book, not having a knee-jerk reaction to things, in the legal profession, but also in life, when something happens that we did not want to happen, it's easy to take it personal. But how do you manage not taking the no moments personal and not like marinating in them too long? We can start with Jason.
It's tough.
Mm-hmm.
It reminds me of the movie Billy Madison,
Mm-hmm.
where Billy Madison calls up somebody he picked on, and it was Steve Buscemi's character. And Steve Buscemi had a hit list of all the people that he was gonna punish. And Billy called him, and he said, like, "I'm sorry I treated you that way." And Steve Buscemi took his red lipstick and crossed through Billy Madison's name. So when I was applying out of law school, I had a job right away, but I didn't love it. I wanted more. I wanted to be in sports. I wanted to be in entertainment. I wanted to make more money. And I would apply left and right. Big firm, big firm, big firm, big firm. And I would get rejection letters. And I used to keep them. And I'd had this whole file. And I would be like, you know what? I can't wait to go to court against so-and-so so that I can show him this letter. And I'm the guy that you didn't do. And I'm this and I'm that. And I didn't burn the bridges, but I put the bridge up. Like, I wanted nothing more. I didn't set it on fire. I could always lower the bridge so I could cross over. My son, who is a scholar athlete right now in high school, he's through the whole recruiting process. And what I keep instilling in him is, even though you get we're full this year, or we don't want this, or we don't want that, he stays in touch, sends them emails. Hey, coach, I'll be at this event. I can't wait to see you. And without going into details, because he's in the thick of it, couple of the coaches have stayed in touch with him and have told him they're so impressed by his growth and so impressed. And he has good dialogue with these coaches. Will he wind up at one of those schools? I don't know. But if he's ever, playing one of those, big hug, big high five, great seeing you. So I think that's important. And to me, the most important thing is I got over my putting up the bridge to teach my son basically, don't burn those bridges. And it's so important. And I think that's probably what got you that job. You didn't burn that bridge. And, he probably saw, he's like, man, this kid's persistent. He knows what he's doing. Now we got money. Let's bring him in. And I think that's just a testament as to his personality and him. Like, he pushes, and that's huge.
Yeah. What's your way of not taking things personally?
Wow, my way of not taking things personally probably. Well, I have sort of. I mean, I would call people, right? I'll call my mom. I'll call Jason. I'll speak to my wife. And it's really just understanding that it may have happened to you, but it's just not personal in the grand scheme of things, right? And I mean, that's really it. My answer is I speak to people and they would then share their experiences with me, their past experiences. And then in that conversation, it then becomes more known to me that you really can't take everything personal, even though you may be representing a client and you may lose a hearing or you may lose a trial. Like at the end of the day, I mean, it's on you, yes, but taking that personally, I think, does more harm than good in the long run. And I mean, like I said, I've gained that sort of experience, that sort of ways to overcome that based on having those conversations. I mean, after a hearing, I'd call Jason like, "Yeah, I'm really bummed about this, right? I mean, would I scream in a pillow for 5 seconds? Yeah, maybe."
Absolutely.
But at the end of the day, I mean, life goes on, right? We have to get up the next morning and do the same thing all over again. So it's really just based on understanding other people and how they've dealt with their scenarios and really learning and taking from their experiences, applying it.
I think part of the problem, though, that we all face as attorneys is that we want to be passionate, right? And there's different ways. If we represent a client, that's a friend, that's a family member, that's someone we look up to, that's someone we're mentoring. It's important to us that we do the best for them. And we take it very personal where we should have won, but like that hurts. I know you do, environmental protection and the law, and you're standing up for good. If a court rules against you and you believe in your heart that you're right, like it hurts. It's very, very personal. And one of the things I talk about in the book is don't have that knee-jerk reaction. What do you want to do? You want to pick up the phone and you want to call that judge and you want to be like, why'd you rule this way? And why'd you say this? And why? But you can't. And what I know what I do, and it's been great, I do it with Stef, is I'll send an email and I'll only send it to Stef. And a lot of times he could probably say word for word, did I go overboard or is this too much? And he is smart. He'll wait an hour or two and he'll write back and he'll be like, I think you need to tone it down a little bit. And by then all the steam and all the anger is gone. But, our profession, people look to us for the answers. And when we don't have them, I think it's personal to us.
Yeah. That reminds me of a hearing that I did, and the judge ruled in our favor, and the ruling came out, and then it got attacked left and right. And I was literally fuming. Like, my blood was boiling. I have never been so mad. Because when I read the motions attacking the ruling, I'm like, what are you even saying? Like, I couldn't even get through it. I had to literally leave my computer and go for a walk, and I didn't look at it again until the next day. Like, because it did feel personal. I'm like, what are you, like, and so I really had to recognize that opposing counsel or just opposing counsel is just trying to do their job and defend their client in the best way that they can, just like I'm trying to do that. And so,
but one of the things they don't teach you in law school, and I'm admittedly guilty of it, is you'll take that attack on the opposing counsel. And it's not just what is, plaintiff said this and this in her motion. No, it's a lot of times plaintiff and her counsel said that like, and I'm guilty of that. I will do that. Steph knows. There's a couple of attorneys that I get heated and we deal with the same attorney. Steph has one or two that boils his blood. It gets him heated. So we tag team that. I'll take the ones he doesn't like. He gives me the one. So, but to know that is your personality, and to know that, I think that's really important. What are your pressure points? What are the things that drive you nuts? And try to avoid putting yourself in those situations.
Yeah. My thing that drives me crazy is when attorneys or opposing counsel will twist the facts into a way, which is what we do. I know we twist facts in our favor, but when they twist the facts in such a way as you're like, that's not even true. That's not even what it's saying. Like, that's not even what? Like, it's not that gray. Like, what are you doing? And then you have to sit there and like make it black and white again. And you know what I mean? And that's what makes me crazy, because I don't like people who do that. And so I know it triggers me.
We had one the other day, right?
Yeah.
The attorney on the other side, in a motion, said that I did not give him a copy of a transcript from a depo. Okay. So for listeners that aren't lawyers, we don't give the depo out. If you want the depo, you call the court reporter, because that's how court reporters make money, and they charge you and they give it to you. So I'm fuming. And I pull up the end, and it's like, Mr. Weiss, would you like to? Yes, I'd like to order. Mr. Opposing counsel, what do you want to do? Yes, I'd like a copy. Okay, so that's between the court reporters. So the guy files this motion, and I'm like, he's a liar, he's this, he's that. Oh my God, I can't believe it. I want to go in front of the judge. And Steph turns to me and he goes, and what would that do? And I say to myself, nothing. Because the judge isn't going to care. She's not even going to read it.
Yeah.
He's like, exactly. I'm like, okay. And I put it in my pocket, and I'll do it for later on. Your Honor, I hope, words aren't twisted next time by Mr. So-and-so. So, but it boils your blood. And the one thing I'll say is having someone to bounce it off of, a spouse, a boss, someone that is in the trenches with you, is huge, especially for us in the practice. And Steph even said it. He'll speak to his mom, he'll speak to me, he'll speak to whatever. I'll speak to my wife, I'll speak to my kids. Having a sounding board is, I think, the key to being successful in anything you do.
Yeah. And I think it too comes with years of practice. Because a lot of times I'll draft a response, like how I think we should respond, or all the reasons why we're right, to the partner at my firm. He's like, just let it lie. I'm like, what? Oh, let it lie? What? The amount of times he said, let it lie, I'm just like, this is crazy. But it's true. And in the grand scheme of things, okay, what's the point? Like, it's not worth billing our client for that if it's not actually even going to do anything. It's more for like your own, just,
Yeah.
But that's a great mentality that you have. Why bill the client for that? Because a lot of practicing attorneys would be like, yeah, let's bill the client for that. Let's do it. We can make an extra $5,000 or $6,000. And that's what hurts us as a profession. Yeah. For you to say, you know what, it might make me feel good, but it's not in the best interest of the client. That right there, to me, means that you care about what you do and you are going to continue to be successful.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that.
I believe it.
Thank you. And I do want to point out that even though we're talking about this in the context of the legal profession, I think these same principles apply in just regular life. Like, if someone's twisting facts in a way that just makes you crazy, like, sometimes the best thing to do is walk away and to not even entertain that conversation. And sometimes, like, these things are talking it through with someone and see how someone else went through something similar to you, so you can have more perspective on the situation.
So you mean don't go on the app next door or put it on Instagram and go ahead and post about it? This person did this and I'll never eat at this restaurant. Don't do that?
No.
Oh, okay. You heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen.
You heard it here first. So one of the things I really like in your book is how you talk about the practice of law being a practice for a reason, meaning that we're kind of figuring it out as we go. The law isn't always black and white. And to just bring it to life again, life isn't always black and white either. And in both regards, in the legal profession and in life, we're figuring things out as we go all the time, every single step of the way. And so I want to know for you guys, what kind of keeps you moving through the gray? Like, how do you move through the gray when you don't know exactly what's going on?
You want to start or you want me to try?
You try. I'll follow up.
Um, I do think it's a trial and error. I think you go for it and you see what works. If it works, you continue down that path. If it doesn't work, you've got to, change course. You've got to go a little bit different. If you're in front of a judge and you know that she likes 14-point font, well, you make sure to always do 14-point font. I've learned the hard way. I literally got an order the other day that said, everything that you wanted, da, 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 denied without prejudice. And there was a footnote saying you got to follow the local rules. Middle District of Florida requires 14-point font, not 12. Okay, so I learned. I would have lost anyway. But that gray area, it is practice. It is practice, and you get in and you figure out what works. But what's frustrating about the practice of law is that you and I could go in and argue the exact same motion in front of the exact same judge, and you could win and I could lose. And then I could go in and argue the exact same argument that I lost to another judge, and I could win. So I think that's the hardest part, that gray. And back to what Steph was talking about, you can't take it personal. You don't know what's going on in that judge's, household that day, in his chambers, in her car, she has a sick dog, a sick kid, a death in the family. You don't know. And that's one of the things about law. It's keep practice, and you'll never be perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I guess to piggyback off of that, how I sort of maneuver that part of it, like Jason said, you read the procedural rules for that district or for that specific court. But for me, it's also like knowing your opponent, right? I mean, you talk about athletics, you talk about sports, you talk about being on a team. It's all about knowing who you're coming up against, right? And that could mean the judge, that could mean opposing counsel, that could mean the bailiff, right? I mean, I know when I go to court in Broward, I mean, one of the first people who I started to be familiar with was the bailiff, right? I mean, why? Because he's with the judge every single day. I mean, it's not gonna win me a case, me knowing him, but it's just gonna make my life there a little bit easier.
Yeah.
And it, like I said, it goes back to knowing your opponent, right? I mean, before hearing, I would look up the judge. Or when I was in college, before a game, I would look up who's the defender who I'm going to be running up against, right? And for that 90 minutes, I'm saying pretty much a lot of things under the sun, right? Towards that person. I mean, and after the game, we shake hands, we hug, and we move on, right? And again, that's comes back to not taking it personally and sort of knowing your role and doing what you need to do in order to benefit your client or your team or whoever it is. So I mean, I guess coming back to law and the practice of law and that gray area, for me, the most important thing is knowing what you're coming up against. And really, I mean, the law is the law, right? You could read a statute and that's the statute unless it's amended, right? So you read the statute, but again, there are ways in which you could deliver that message or deliver your argument based on the recipient, right? Based on who you're delivering it to, based on who you're coming up against. And I think that's, for me, that's how I look at it. And I mean, it may change just based on experience, but for me right now, that's how I sort of navigate the law and the gray areas.
Yeah. This reminds me of, in your book, the PPP. Do you want to tell the listeners what that is?
Sure. It was plan, prepare, and perform. And my wife, who's probably sitting where I can't see her,
She's cheering.
She's probably cheering on because when I was in law school, we had a mock trial, and we used our entire mock trial as PPP, and this is way before COVID because I'm much older than that. And it was plan, prepare, and perform. and I use that mantra in my life now. Plan for something, prepare for it, and go out and do it. And you could do that in sports, you could do that in life, you can do that in whatever it is. Plan, 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 prepare, and go perform. It's like practice if you're with a team, standing in front of the mirror, reciting your argument. Steph and I, we argued a motion for summary judgment a couple weeks ago. I literally ran through it in front of a mirror 15 times.
Yep.
Just to practice and to get it. So yeah, plan, prepare, and perform, and just be ready. But you can't also be so stringent and so set in your way that it's, like I had an 8-minute argument because we had a 30-minute hearing. I had 8 minutes prepared. But also, like Steph pointed out, Jason, the judge is not going to let you talk for 8 minutes straight. She actually did. But I was prepared at any point in time for her to stop me and ask a question. And that's what it is. So as much as you plan, as much as you prepare, when you're performing, you need to be ready to just go with the flow.
Yeah.
And, one of the things that he does great is he's always, maybe on the inside, he's all clenched up, but he's always seems so relaxed and always ready. And I think that calming, soothing goes over well for clients, judges, and I think it kind of frustrates opposing counsels too. Oh yeah, Your Honor, I prepared for that. And it's and it shows the clients good too. The one thing that you didn't say is when you're in court battling, half the times we're battling with our clients because we'll go in there and it's like, hey, if you can get me $50,000, this case is over. And it's like, we go and we're arguing it. Hey, I got you 50 grand. Who said 50? I want 70. What? Now we're fighting with our clients on the same thing. Oh, I won't sign this settlement agreement because it says I don't get paid for 5 days. I want the money now. Really? So you got to remember that. That's part of the battle too. Fighting with your clients and getting them to take a step back. And again, don't take it personal.
Yeah, absolutely. So something you said in the book too that I want to quote you here. You said, make mistakes, own up to them, fix them, and learn from them. It's all part of life. You live and you learn. And I really like that part about making mistakes because we can kind of think of mistakes as like no moments too.
Yes.
And I want to know what the mistakes you guys have made have taught you about yourself.
I think you'd probably have to ask my wife or my kids because they'll tell you all the time, all of the mistakes I make and everything I don't do right. But I know for me, one of the things that it was a no moment and a teachable moment and a livable moment was I would allow, when I first started the practice of my own firm, I allowed clients to get ahead of me in their bill. And what do I mean? They'd give me a couple grand and then their bill would get to 5,000, 10,000, 15,000, 20,000. Don't worry, they're going to pay for it. Don't worry, they're going to pay for it. And I have 2 clients that probably got up to 100 grand and neither of them ever paid. And they're both now guests of the federal government, having nothing to do with me. But I allowed that to get away from me. So how did I learn? Now I don't let clients do that. You're a couple grand ahead, 5 grand, 7 grand. I could live with that. But once you're hitting 10 grand, now you got to pay. Come on, Jay. I'm good for it. No, I'm sorry. I know you're good for it. I know, but pay something.
Yeah.
Put your money where your mouth is. And more often than not, they'll pony up some money. Maybe not the whole amount, but some. So the livable moment and teachable moment of that is don't be afraid to ask and don't be afraid to stake your position, especially if it might not be what the client wants to hear, but you got to do it. Look, I got payroll. I got to meet these. I got to pay bar dues. I got to pay this. I got a credit card bill. I can't work for free. I'm not a bank. And that's one of the things that I'm talking about in the second version of the book that, as lawyers, we wear lots and lots of hats. Well, one of them should not be a banker's cap.
Yeah.
And that's a preview to the next thing. And Steph reminds me of that. My wife reminds me of that, because she works with us as well. It's, hey, what's going on with this? Oh man, I got to get to the client. today, right?
Yep.
We sent the client a signature page. He signed the old version. So Stef's like, well, what are we going to do? I'm like, you know what, forget it. He's like, but we drafted it. I'm like, just forget it. Let's just move on. That's the best we're going to get from him. And I could see the steam coming out of his ears. Like, I spent 15 minutes of my day on this stupid signature page, and he's going to sign the wrong one. Why can't the guy follow freaking directions?
Yeah, we had that conversation driving up.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that gentleman, right? We're happy he does anything.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you learned where to delegate work and what you need to focus on and what should kind of be focused on elsewhere, and to speak up and to tell you lots of things about yourself.
Yeah. Speak up and to not be as trusting that everybody else is as professional as we are.
Mm-hmm.
And that's huge. And that's a big thing for me to learn. If I tell you I'm going to meet you for a podcast at 6:00 on a certain day at a certain time, I'm going to be there.
Yeah.
I'm going to be there at 5:50 because that's me. I don't need 7 reminders. I don't need anything. I'm sure you're the same way. But there are others where it's like, hey, let's meet. Let's do this. I need you in court. And you're at court. Where are you? Oh, I didn't know that's where I was supposed to be. Yeah. Yeah.
I know that I get lost, but I'm also a very punctual person. I get lost without fail. It happens to me every time, but it's something I know about me. So I always leave myself a lot of extra time to get. Well, today I was with Stef, so I knew he could figure it out. But if I had come by myself, I would have been here by like 5:30 just because I knew I would go the wrong way.
So I go on my Weiss app, and although the shortest method got me here in 30 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
I went to see the longest way, and that was 41 minutes. So I made sure to give myself 45 minutes to get here.
Right.
And that's my way of
Yeah.
doing it because I don't want to be late.
No, I don't like to be late. I'm the same way. I'm like, I will, if I say I'm going to do something, I will do it. But I will say I think my biggest strength is also my biggest weakness, in that I see the good in people. So I always think they're going to do good. And I always get blindsided when they don't. And so that's something I know about myself too. So I kind of tread more cautiously. Not so guarded, because I don't want to lead a guarded life, but I now that I know that's one of my qualities, I do try to be more cautious.
So I'm going to ask you a question.
Yeah.
How do you balance that? Because my personality is the same way, right? If we said we were going to meet, we met, we're here, we're doing it, right? So that's great. But how do you not lead such a guarded life, but at the same time not set yourself up to be hurt?
It's a really, really hard, delicate dance, and I don't think I've quite mastered it. But I do know I set the intention to not be so guarded, and I try and consciously act in my intention, if that makes sense.
It's the practice of acting in your intention.
It's the
I like it.
practice.
I like it. I like
Yes.
it. It is practice because
Yeah.
somebody's going to let you down. It could be
Always.
It could be an opposing counsel, it could be a judge, it could be a client, it could be a colleague. You're going to get let down. And part of it is to just be prepared, not dwell on it, move on, and just remember at the end of the day, you have your happiness, your health, your job, your parents, whatever it is that brings you joy. And because look, we all work to live, not live to work.
Wow.
That's it.
How are you going to follow up with that?
Tough act to follow, but but no, I mean my lessons or my what's the
What the mistakes you've made taught
So,
you about yourself?
So the mistakes have taught me that my mistakes have taught me that one, I'm only human,
Mm-hmm.
and two, it's how you react after that mistake, right? Because I mean, someone tells you, okay, you made a mistake, you did this wrong. All right, then what's the correct way to do it? And from that point on, I think that's where you sort of test yourself and test your sort of commitment to improving, right? It's how you react to that mistake, how you react to that, whether it's a letter, whether it's a text, whether it's a call, whether it's a conversation with that person who said, hey, listen, I mean, you did this wrong, do it correct. And for me, it's one, like I said, knowing that I'm only human and mistakes happen, but I try to focus on how I could then do that better, or not do what I did.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it comes back to, I mean, like you just said, right? Knowing yourself and knowing what you're capable of doing, right? If I know I'm always late, which I'm not, then I will try to get there 10, 20 minutes, 30 minutes earlier,
Mm-hmm.
right? So for me, it's understanding what I did wrong and really sort of self-reflecting on that mistake, how it could be better, and how I could improve, and not dwelling on it and not taking it too seriously. Although you do take it seriously, because
Mm-hmm.
that's just your natural instinct, that's your natural reaction, right? Someone tells you something bad about, or something you did wrong, well, oh, you're taking that person, but then you sort of peel it back and, okay, it could then help me moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's how I approach mistakes. And just, I mean, it just allows me to focus a little bit more the next time around.
Yeah.
And I think
And,
that's how
and,
I
and I
do it.
think one of the important things is just admitting to it, right?
Mhm.
You know what? I'm sorry, I'm late, traffic got me, it's not going to happen again. Uh, but I think the frustrating part is when, like what we talked about earlier, you go in front of Judge A, you do your argument, boom, you're golden, right? You go in front of Judge B, same argument, same case, lose. Your Honor, can I ask why? No, I'm not. You just lose. See, it's not a teaching moment. It's not a learning moment. And I think that's what's so frustrating about the law.
Mhm.
You could go in front of two judges, the exact same set of facts, and one judge will rule in your favor, judge will rule against you. And more often than not, you can't even ask the judge why. Sometimes you get great judges. There are phenomenal ones out there that will say to you, you know what, Mr. Weiss, if you would have thought about this, I would have done it. Or my favorite is, not on a motion to dismiss, but I'll see you soon on a motion for summary judgment. That at least lets you know, all right, I'm on the right track. If it's, yeah, not today, maybe another day, that lets you know. Nope, denied. Can I ask why, Your Honor? Sure, you can ask, but I'm not telling you why. Just denied. Have a nice one. Next. That's frustrating.
Yeah. This also reminds me of something one of the partners at my firm says. He says you always give three arguments. It's the one you actually gave, the one you thought you gave, and the one you wish you gave. Oh, maybe there's a fourth one, and the one that was heard. Maybe there's four, I don't remember. But that is so true. Because when I gave my first argument, I was thinking about it and thinking about it. And the truth is, you just give the one you give, and it's kind of out of your hands after that.
And you give the argument you give, and then it's, I should have said this.
Mm-hmm.
And I've done that. And Steph will say to me, well, even if you would have brought it up, you still would have lost.
Yeah.
And then we had one, recently on that motion for summary judgment where the judge kept asking him the same question, and he was answering it the same way. And it was just like I could see him saying, Your Honor, why are you not seeing this? And I'm like, Your Honor, maybe it's da 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 da. And Steph looks at me, he's like, that's what I've been saying. And I'm like, but I said it a different way. And she's like, ah, yeah. And you could tell she still didn't buy it, but it's okay. I think he could have said anything except, Your Honor, just rule against me, and she wouldn't have been happy. So.
Yeah.
But I think I bring that up for the self-reflection aspect of it, and the mistakes. When we make mistakes, the self-reflection is so important. And sometimes we don't always know the answer, and that is something we have to accept too. But I think this conversation is so admirable because a lot of people won't even try something out of fear of making a mistake, or not just out of pure fear. And I like that we're having this conversation about, like, you kind of have to be fearless to try something you've never done, and just trust that you're going to figure it out.
You hear it all the time. Trust the process. Trust the process.
I hate that, but it's so true.
I'm not a fan of that either. I don't trust the process. I'm sorry. I can trust the process if I can control it a little bit. But if I have to just trust the process, no, not gonna happen.
I trust the PPP is what I trust.
Plan, prepare, and perform, but then at least Look, I say it to both of my kids. My daughter's a dancer. My son's a lacrosse player, and if the game didn't go the way they want or something happened, I'll turn to them and say, did you give it your all? And if the answer is yes, then that's it. You gave it your all. It is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. So I want to talk about celebrating the wins. We've talked a lot about the no's and what they teach us, which are very valuable, and we love no's here on Thank You for Saying No. But the wins and acknowledging the wins and celebrating them, this is something you actually taught me. I remember, I know you're like, what? Because when I finished the bar, because I took the bar in Miami for California because it was during COVID, so I was in my apartment from 11 to 8 because it was West Coast hours, and when I finished the bar, I remember being so freaked out, like, where am I going to work? I was still in Miami, but I didn't take the Florida bar, so I wasn't going to be in Florida, and I wanted to be in DC, but no one was like getting back to me. And so all my stuff was in Miami. My lease was coming up. Like, I didn't know what I was doing and I was freaking out. And I remember you telling me, like, just enjoy this time, Kenya. Like, and luckily Steph was a year ahead of me. So this is one of your wise wisdoms you gave me. But really just enjoying that downtime and appreciate the fact that you just took the bar and, like, actually made it through the bar because some people don't. It's hard. I have friends who, when they took it in person, had to leave. Like it's a hard thing to even just do, you know. And so, I think even celebrating the wins, when after taking the bar, I definitely didn't feel like a winner. Like, I did not feel good.
Which means you passed and you did fine. That's what the bar is all about. You walk out saying, I did not do well, you did fine.
So I want to talk about just the importance of celebrating the wins, the big ones and the small ones.
The importance of it.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's. I mean, I think it's what keeps you going, right? Respecting the work that you put in to something, appreciating the work that you put into something, and I think it comes back again to self reflection, right? Because only you know how much you put into something, and you get out of something what you put into it,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to appreciate it and enjoy it, right? So whether it's watching TV or watching a whole series of Netflix or taking a trip to Turks and Caicos, right? You enjoy it, and because you know what you put in, right? You know what you did. You know the hard work that went into to what you wanted, to
Yeah.
what you got, and I think it's important really to just live it and enjoy it, and but also respect the hard work that went into it, and don't lose sight of the next project that you need to dedicate yourself to.
Yeah.
And so I think it's really just, I mean, enjoying it, like
Mm-hmm.
in whatever way you want, whether it's go to the run club or go watch a movie,
Yeah.
but enjoy it because you work hard and you have to, I mean, you reap the benefits of your own work.
Yeah.
And it's really up to you to enjoy it and just sort of keep that mentality going for the next time.
Yep.
And that's something I need to learn how to do, right? If I celebrated my wins as long as I dwelled on my losses, I'd be celebrating all the time.
Right.
You know, I dwell on the loss. I could have done this. I could have done that. Oh my God, I can't believe I can't. And you're 2 days into it, 2 hours into it. Hey, I wrote a book. Cool. All right, I wrote a book. Now what? Now what's next? Oh, but I lost my motion for summary judgment. Like that. That's my problem. That's my upbringing. That's how I'm wired. That's what it is. And to anybody that's listening and watching, completely and totally wrong. You got to do what he said. Enjoy the wins, remember them, because what's the expression? What have you done for me lately, right? Hey, I won your case. Awesome. Now what about these other three? It's like that's what clients expect from us. So yeah, celebrate in your own way.
Yeah.
Go to the Turks and Caicos, watch something on Netflix, do whatever it is. I'm learning how to do that. I am nowhere near. For me, it'll be the practice of learning how to celebrate.
Yeah. Because no one's going to celebrate for you. You have to celebrate for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think once you celebrate, you get that feeling, then you want to do it more, right?
Mm-hmm.
You may not succeed every single time, but you still have that energy, that push to do something and
Yeah.
to know in the back of your head that, hey, listen, if I do this well enough, I'm gonna succeed.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's just a good mentality to have and to live by.
Yeah. So let's end on this note. Looking back, what do you wish you had known when you first started practicing law?
I'll answer that first.
Oh, go for it, because it could take me a week to answer that question.
That it's not what it always seems, right? And I know that's pretty vague response, but that's how I feel, right? Like, I mean, going to law school, I mean, you tell people you're an attorney, the first question is, would you Suits? Would you like the guy from
I'm
Suits,
always like, yeah, I am. Thanks.
right?
Harvey Specter, baby.
Exactly.
So, and that's one perception of it, but I think there's a lot more that goes into, or that needs to go into, the backside, the behind the scenes of what you are today, or where I am today, right? It's not always what it seems, and I think for me, it's that. I think that's it. It's not always what it seems, and there's a lot more that goes into it,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot more that you don't necessarily see behind the scenes that you end up doing
Mm-hmm.
on the scene.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of trial and error, and a lot of error
Mm-hmm.
in my mind. And I think those errors make or made and are making me a better individual, professionally and personally.
Yeah.
That's big. I mean, I wanted to be a lawyer since I was probably 5, 6, 7 years old. And for me, it was all based on the fact that I saw my cousin driving a Jaguar. And I turned to my mom and I'm like, hey, mom, what does Bruce drive? And what is that? And she's like, it's a Jaguar. I'm like, that thing's awesome. What does Bruce do? Bruce is a lawyer. All right, cool. I want to be a lawyer. And that was it. And so for me, it was always, be an attorney, have lots of money, be able to buy what you want. And I remember it was right before COVID. I was up at a party in New York and I saw Bruce. And I told him, I said, I went to law school because of, you and that Jaguar. He turns to me, he goes, that Jaguar was from a client that couldn't pay me. And I was literally holding it together with, bubble gum and duct tape. So if I would have said to Bruce, oh, can I see your car? And I got in and I saw the leather's ripped and it's falling apart, I might not have gone to law school. Um, so the perception is yes, we bill, 350, 450, $500 an hour. Oh, you must be raking it in and rich. Okay. Not every client pays.
Mm-hmm.
Not every client does that. Clients will dispute bills. You get stiffed with stuff. So it's not it's not as glitzy and glamorous as we all thought. And,
Mm-hmm.
and I went to law school wanting to be Jerry Maguire and never happened.
You're Jason Weiss, though.
Yes, I am. I am.
Those were both really good answers. And Steph and Jason, just before we really end for real, I just want to thank you both for being here. And I just want to like acknowledge and admire. And I'm sure if your kids don't appreciate this now, they definitely will when they're older. But just the fact that you both, being men, can come here and talk about these hard moments and talk about it together with each other. I just don't think we have a lot of examples of this today. And it means a lot that you both came on my show to have this kind of conversation and set that example for the next generation.
I was honored to be invited. So for me, I thank you and I thank Steph for having, for allowing me to sit here. So I thank you both. And he's a great balance for me. He's the kind that it's just everything is even keel. Like I said, in the inside, he might be, but even keel. He keeps me level. He keeps me grounded, and he's someone that I've learned to trust and really appreciate.
Yeah.
And he is just an incredible man, and he's going to be a phenomenal parent.
Oh God, here come my tears. No, I know. I hope she sees this one day and is just like, wow, I'm so glad like he's my dad.
I hope so. But no, thank you, Jason, for those kind words. And obviously, Kenya, for having me, and Jason. I mean, I was a little bit surprised to get the call up, but I'm honored. It's good that it was a good opportunity for Jason to come on here. And I was also surprised when you said you were going to have him, but then I thought it's probably the perfect setting to have
Really
him
is.
speak. And I think we're both honored to be on this specific podcast because I think our experience and our work ethic and our sort of work environment, really feeds into this theme, And I think it's good for us. It's good for people who want to join in and sort of follow in our footsteps, whether it's law, whether it's writing books, whether it's podcasts, whether it's sports. I think there's a lot to learn and a lot to gain from these experiences.
Yeah.
And I will say one thing,
Yeah.
just back to that. There were so many no's that I got when I first graduated from law school in the market, and it was, oh, you have more than one C on your, your first year. No, that, like, you're out of here. I think my life would be different, not better, but different. If I would have gone to one of those firms that you have to wear a suit and tie every day and you have to do this, it wouldn't have allowed me to experience and do. I can honestly say I've never missed any opportunity for my kids. I've been at all of their dances, all of their games, practices, So you got to remember that if you get that no from the firm that's the white glove firm and the big tie and all of this, remember what you're trading off. And looking in the moment, I was so angry, so bitter. But looking back now, those no's were incredible.
Yeah.
And that's what I love your message. I mean, that's it. Thank you for saying no.
Yeah.
Thank you for allowing me to go another path, which allows me to be happy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
And really quickly before we log off, for real, do you want to shout out your firm and your podcast and just anything else so listeners can find you if they need to?
So yes, I host a podcast. It's every other Thursday. It's called Ask Jason Weiss, and I'm definitely going to have you on one of the shows.
That'd be so fun.
I'm booked out through August of 2024, but after that, I'm going to have you on the show. Stef and I work together, a firm called Weiss Law Group, and best way to get in touch with us is to go through Stef and just Google Stef John. Check him out on LinkedIn. And that's the best way because he is the future of the legal profession.
Fun times.
So thanks guys so much for being here. It's been really fun.
Thank you. It's been a great time.
This has been incredible. Thank you so much for having us.
Thanks. Okay. Follow and subscribe to the Thank You for Saying No podcast, and you'll get every episode as soon as it's released.